Hello and welcome everyone to this very special episode of Is podcast ko kya naam do? Today the one of the biggest shows in India, perhaps one of the most famous shows in Hindi television is Pyaar ko kya naam do turns 10. Yay!
हो गया सत्यानाश।
ये लो, एक नए स्कूटर की कीमत इससे ज्यादा क्या होगी?
इसकी कोई जरूरत नहीं।
कम है तो और ले लो।
ये पैसे देकर किसी से सॉरी बोलना सीख लीजिए, जिंदगी में बहुत काम आएगा।
And as promised, here's a special video where we'll be discussing the best of IPK. So if you're ready to ride into the wave of nostalgia, reminisce the best things about this show, stay tuned with us. And obviously, I'm S, and with me I have.
Reds.
Yay!
That was, if someone heard that, they would be like, "Are you two even friends?" Because it sounded like you were like, "Hey, Reds, yay! So glad to see you here." Not.
Come on, I'm a very good actor. My level of acting is as good as Arnav Singh Raizada trying to pretend that he really needs to eat these headache pills that he forgot midway of his act to Anjali. So,
नन्नम मेरे भाई
छोटे, बताओ ना क्या बात है?
I don't remember.
Bar none, yes, the greatest actor of our time.
absolutely. So, for this IPK's 10-year celebration, my very first question to you is it's been 10 years. I don't think it's a surprise that it's still famous, but what do you, as a fan of the show, what do you honestly still love about IPK?
Ooh, how? Okay, I think the show had created a good enough foundation, and in a way, I'm not bashing the show. Don't come for my neck, but in a way, like they built a very good foundation, but there were enough. I honestly think it was probably a little good for the show that it started off so well and then had some plot holes because people felt the need to fill them. IPK created, in my opinion, one of the richest writing communities for shows out there. And well, now what I love about the show is fan content, to be honest with you. Like I watch the original last year I had a bit of nostalgia and went back and like watched some of the scenes, but I'd really like the thing that keeps it alive for me is definitely the writing surrounding it.
I think that is true. I think that is very beautifully put. If I have to answer what I still love about IPK, I think especially as someone who has grown up with the show literally, is I get to understand the characters a lot more, and I think what I still love about this character about this show is the way some things were very nuanced and, as you said, gave way for writers to write a lot. Like it is still the show that sparks my imagination. I think that's one way to put it, because there was so many, not everything was written on screen, not every dialogue was a shove in the face. You had so many little layers that even now, when I still think about a song or I'm thinking of a plot line, Arnav and Khushi, they're the first thing that comes up to my mind, because it's that kind of material that leaves enough room to give you this boost of creativity and allow you to expand your imagination. Next question. What do you think made IPK so famous?
Because it's not a that's an interesting question because I think plot wise it's not a unique concept, right? Yeah, the whole like sister's husband, whatever. But I think it's the way they wrote that plot, like some of the dialogue writing for sure. There's a lot of things that made that show. I think it's a combination of many things going right. The cast was perfect. The writing in the beginning was very rich, nuanced, like you said. It gave you just enough to keep you hooked, but not so much that you like they didn't shove things in your face. It was very subtly done, because what we as audience get, even if it had the most brilliant writing, what we receive is a product of the how well it's acted out. So I'd say probably the cast. The casting was really well done.
I can only agree with you on that. I think one of the things that also made IPK very famous is, as you said, the plot is nothing new, but it really stood out compared to its contemporaries. Like, there was, when IPK came out, we were still, like, family drama would take up 90% of the content. And even if there were love stories, like, how do I say, the obstacles in those love stories would be family drama. So there was no way escaping that. So in that way, IPK was a breath of fresh air, because family drama wasn't really one of their thing. It was rarely even a problem for them. The only time they went the family drama was the whole family reacting to Arnav and Khushi's elopement and all the XYZ that only lasted for a couple of episodes. So it wasn't a stretched period of time. So I honestly feel that also with IPK, they allowed the audience to live in the characters' lives for some time, because usually when shows would begin, you'd get this extended intro of who each and every character is, and then we get a snippet of our lives. But with IPK, we just jumped straight into plot, and we're trying to figure out who's who, which I think gave people a lot of fun when it comes to understanding, wait, who's the antagonist, who's the hero. They would give us no cues initially. There was no cue for Arnav and Khushi being the deal. We get it because they're both extremely beautiful people and there's literal fireworks when they meet, but there's no cue. Like, Shyam and Khushi have a romantic tune before Arnav and Khushi have one. So that I always found it very interesting, because if you were watching that show for the first time, you'd almost be like, oh, wait a second, where do I go with this plot? So it made it a very rich viewing experience. They established a formula that could work for almost a decade after.
Yeah, and again, I have not, since IPK, watched many Indian dramas, so I don't know how common this trope is. I've been watching a lot of Korean dramas, and one of the biggest commonalities across all shows is the second lead. Like, there's always a solid second lead. You don't, not Sham, like just in general, a great guy. Like, you almost feel like, even though you ship the main couple, you almost want them to be together. I didn't watch IPK without the hindsight of knowing about Sham, so I'm not sure how people like who watched it live felt about it. But I imagine it was something like that, and I don't know if that existed in many shows even then or since, of like, providing a contrast to the main lead, even if like, for a short period of time. I don't know if people, because I, again, don't know how people felt about it because I wasn't involved in the fandom back then, but I imagine some people were probably shipping Khushi and Sham for a while, because he did, like, genuinely in the beginning, he seems like the saner of the two guys in her life.
Yeah. No, I think the show did a really good job of, one, introducing us a villain like never before. I have never seen a villain get a hero-esque entry. He literally got the entry of Man Singh Khurana from Geet, and that guy was the hero over there. So it was amazing. I still, when I watch it, it is so good, and I think they really worked well on characters. You could connect with the characters even if sometimes the plot didn't make sense. And I would say one of the other reasons why IPK continues to be so famous is because for the longest time, each and every character had motivations. Like if they disliked each other or liked each other, there was a certain good amount of motivation for that, as opposed to, no, this is the hero and heroine, they should be hating each other, because that's how shows work. And now, talking about other shows, my final question for this round is, so obviously, ever since 2010, 2011, shows like IPK have been like a rage on television. So, but even then, a lot of people still admit that no show has really been as good as IPK. So, what makes you think that it stands out even though it's like 10 years old?
The easy answer would be chemistry. I think the lead, like obviously Bird and Sanaya have amazing chemistry on screen. Great actors. When they're on screen together, you can't take your eyes off of them. The cast had great chemistry with each other, regardless of the type of relationship. I think the siblings, they do behave very similarly off screen, and you can kind of see the way they fit, right? Their characters. I think that's a huge part of the charm. Like I have not, regardless of how good or bad other plots were, because I've seen snippets of other shows. I've never watched another show entirely, but I've seen bits and pieces here and there. And I don't know if I've seen any other couple or cast have this level of chemistry. The one other thing I'd say is that there have been shows with anti-hero, or as I like to call him, perpetually pissed off for no reason. There have been a lot of shows before and after IPK. I think the thing that they did really well with Arnav's character, and I'll only speak to Arnav's character because I don't know if they did it that well with any other character, is his story arc. You like him despite all of his bad qualities. I don't know how to put it, but you weren't rooting for him because he was rich, arrogant asshole. You were rooting for him because, there's a part of him that was soft. There was a part of him that wanted to love, believed in marriage or like forever, but didn't quite admit it because of his past. Like he had enough of that softness to his character that you wanted him to succeed, if that makes sense. Like I think they balanced that very well, because a little bit of more the assholery, and I like, no one, at least I wouldn't have rooted for his character.
What else can I say? Perfect. I mean, you to always give perfect answers, kids.
If only that were true about my academic performances.
Yeah, I mean, there are a million reasons as to why this show is even so special after 10 years. I won't go about, I think you've said everything. If only I can add to that is that the writers of that show exactly knew where to stop with certain behaviors or with certain plot lines. And I think that's what made it special. They could have easily turned NK into another rival, but they rather kept him as Khushi's best friend. And it's things like that that have made show memorable. Like Arnav's past is legit. It shows his behavior, but they've never used it to excuse his actions. So it actually creates a much more layered character. In my opinion, that makes it a much more interesting show to see, because you can see two characters who have dealt with their parents' deaths differently. Khushi has, in certain ways, moved on, but Arnav has not, and we could see that shadow his decisions. And I think it's little minute details like that where they don't whitewash Arnav because he saved Khushi from a falling building. In my opinion, makes this show even good, like even better after 10 years, because a lot of shows post IPK have kind of succumbed to those plot lines, and it makes no sense where they'll go into this cyclical thing of the hero doing something terrible, and then there'll be a sorry and redemption, and any good character would end up vying for the one of the leads because jealousy always works.
Outside of like, I mean, as you might have seen so far, we always have like what we didn't like in an episode sort of a thing or track. Outside of like some very specific instances, I think the show's also not completely tied into how to put, like, it's not like, the family doesn't behave like a typical Indian family in a lot of instances, or the problems that these characters have don't have it that much to do with Riti Rivaj and like it's there, but it's more of a superficial layer. And I think the success that IPK had internationally is because of that, because they could provide a plot with a great cast in a generic enough way that any audience can connect. If it was too tied into our culture or like how most Indian shows portray families, it would have been harder for it to expand globally like it did. I think that's also a reason it stays relevant. Is well, every time it's introduced in a new country or a language, it has a revival, right?
Yes. And now we're to the best of IPK. These will be like 10 questions back to back where we'll ask each other what are some of the best things of IPK. So this might be perhaps a difficult question. Give your answer in the comments below. But Rids, what's the best character in the show for you?
Best character, Lavanya.
Answer to me as well.
What's the best character in the show?
Arnav Singh Raizada. Perfect anti-hero. The start and the beginning, his cycle, his personality does not go through a 180 change because Khushi walks into his life. No, he just learns how to better deal with his emotions. And it's also the limit of what can be accepted as an anti-hero. Like any one step beyond whatever Arnav does, and that character should not be in a romantic pair, that character should be a villain. I think with Arnav, they struck that gold balance.
Arnav's character was very carefully crafted, but to me, Lavanya's character arc, the beginning and end, is much more. The package is very satisfying to me and didn't extend beyond. Like, it lasted exactly as long as it should. And it was, to my knowledge, one of the most respectfully dealt with other women, like quote unquote other woman situation in Indian TV, though she was the main woman, actually. Like, I don't think I've seen many instances where that character didn't turn out to be like, psycho vamp, whatever, however you want to define it. It was just very beautifully done.
Yeah, no, I think Lavanya's character was a very good way of how to write a respectful female character. Is you don't turn two women into enemies because there's a man in common. Like, it's very complex and they dealt with it beautifully. So, my next question, what's the best Rabbave in the show?
Oh, that's a tough one.
I'm known for asking tough questions.
No, you're not.
Did you just say no to that?
Yeah, you're not. I mean, why didn't you go first? Let me think about it this one. I'm winging this interview. No, recording, by the way. I have not prepped, hence the fumbling.
Koi gal nahi. For me, the best Rabbave moment is, again, hands down, the red sari Rabbave. Not because Arnav gives that amazing palat when he walks away. It's because, first of all, I love it that it takes around 20 episodes for that to happen, and it does not happen on the very first episode. And then the second thing is, you see the show promoting the lead couple, then there are things happening. You really need to make sure that you convince the audience that there is attraction, there is something. And the first Red Sari Rabbave does all of it. First of all, it convinces us that these two can be in a romantic sphere. And I also like it that in the very first Rabbave, the show does not try to show us more than what it is. They're very honest about it, that there is lust, there's attraction, that I would say sets the foundation for all the other Rabbaves that happen. and they're very honest about it. Like, he likes what he saw, she is intrigued by what she sees in him, and that's it. That's all that the moment is. It is not over romanticized, because there were also a lot of other problematic things happening here and there, but it's just enough. How do I say? It's kind of like the first chingari, the first flame to a long line of attraction, and I think they executed that very well.
Mm, it's still tough, but I think probably the poolside, like the bangle scene, the mehendi one, when he pulls her dupatta, that whole sequence. I just think it was because I was debating a lot of them. Okay, the New Year one was very sweet. Teri Mary, like the one right before Teri Mary was very sweet. But I think bangle scene, there's a very like innocent sweetness to the relationship at that point.
तुम ठीक हो? मैं निकाल देता हूँ।
हम कर लेंगे।
It's very magical. It's the kind of like crush or like, you know, the beginning of love arc there. It's very nostalgic because it doesn't like, I don't think they can go back to that moment ever again. It's once in like truly once in a lifetime moment for them. And there's something very innocent and sweet about that.
Yeah. If I could add another Rabbave.
No. Nope.
You
only get one.
mentioned Teri Meri. You mentioned New Year.
I said, but I didn't pick them. I did not pick them.
The other Rabbave that went across in my head, I'm not picking it, is the morning of Payal and Akash's wedding. For the same reason that you said the Mehendi scene, like, it's sweet, it's innocent, and it's something that they can never come back to, honestly. And that brings me to my very next question: the best angst track scene moment in the show.
They knew how to start angsty tracks very well. I just wish they knew how to finish them equally as well, because I'm left unsatisfied so many times. For me, probably Holi. That conversation that Khushi has with him in the gazebo, where she's like, it's basically like she doesn't say everything, but you can see like that moment is very much it's not angst in like, you know, that the marriage way or like her heart breaking on the night of like Arnav's heart breaking on the night he sees her on the terrace. Like it's not that impactful, but it's also at the core of it. It's the one that hurt me the most, let me put it that way, because it's just her being very confused about the way she feels about him and why he had stopped responding to it the way she thought he did, if that makes sense. Like there's like this is the others. I'm picking all the moments where I thought their relationship was at its like most pared down version of it, like not involving any other external forces. I also think this moment reflects certain like the innocence of the Mandy scene, but in the rose tinted glasses have been taken off and you're confused about why it ended up the way it did, if that makes sense. That was a very roundabout way of picking a moment, but to me, that was probably the most like heartbreaking one.
I am truly at a loss as to which one is the best angst scene, because there are so.
You only get to pick one. You only get to pick one.
Excuse me, I'm the one who set this up. Like you need.
Doesn't matter. Even if you set it up, I'll set the rules.
Oof. I would say, considering a track that started and ended well, I would say the Sundari Shaitan.
दोनों एक ही आदमी थे। जब सुंदरी को पता चला, तो वो हैरान परेशान हुई कि ये कैसे हो सकता है। पल में शैतान, पल में राजकुमार, ये दोनों एक कैसे हो सकते हैं?
There are many other scenes, like, there are scenes during the Gupta house, but if you're saying something that started and ended well, was very complete, was when Arnav told Khushi he does not want to see her, and then he literally does not see her for the whole next day. And then when Khushi's trying to retell, like, she's trying to tell a fairy tale, and she's coming to realize that hers is a fairy tale come true as a nightmare. And there's so many unanswered questions between them. And there's this one letter that Anjali later reads at the end. Again, post this Sundari Shaitan, I don't know why they don't carry on with this energy.
परियों की कहानी से कब के बाहर आ गए हो? जिसकी आपसे शादी हुई है, उसे परियों की कहानी में विश्वास कैसे हो सकता है?
Oof. Damn, that was well written. The whole Sundari Shaitan thing was well written. The next thing, which is the best dance sequence in the show?
I really like Khushi's Didi Tera Teri Jeet Divane. Yeah, that one.
गुस्से के ये ढूंढे बहाने, क्या करे ये हंसना भी न जाने, क्या करे ये हंसना भी न जाने, होय 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 दीदी तेरे जेठ जी दीवाने, क्या करे ये हंसना भी न जाने.
Though Arnav wasn't participating in it, I just thought it was the best use of a song sequence to convey advancement in a relationship.
Yes, yes. I am so torn over here that which is the best dance sequence, because I almost love every dance sequence in the show, barring Khushi and Arnav's own Sangeet. But I think I will say the Karwa Chauth one, because it's very easy to develop tension pre a couple has consummated their relationship, because that's how you, like, dance is one of the way of showing the chemistry and tension that's not been touched on yet. But with the Karwa Chauth sequence, it was something that was extremely comfortable yet so sensuous. And I don't want to think as to why Abnaja was used, no, but it was very beautifully done, and there's a kind of magic in their dancing that was done over there. It was very sweet, to be honest.
I have an honorary mention. I can't pick this because it wouldn't be my favorite, but your edit of their honeymoon dance, not the original. I like it because it reflects the pre and post. That edit was nice, really nice. I'd still say the JT song because it cracked me up. They changed the song for it too, right? So it took effort and it paid off.
Next one, in your opinion, which is the best acted sequence in the show?
I mean, they're great actors, so there were a lot. I'll say Diwali, like the almost kiss scene, just because it's such a. I think it was very new for Indian TV. It's sensual. It's like the chemistry is amazing. The cinematography in that scene, the lighting, like everything fits so well together to create that 2-minute magic. It's also the scene that made me watch the show, so there's a slight sweet spot for it there. But
Light?
I don't know. Was it a good decision to watch this show and give 10 years of my life to it? We will figure out in 20th anniversary. Maybe I'll have different thoughts about it then.
For me, the sequence that was best acted, I mean, first of all, as Rid said, everyone is an excellent actor. Everyone in the cast. But obviously, this would be more.
Oh, wait, this was for best acted. Still sticking with that scene. I just didn't justify it well. It's also, I think, because that scene doesn't have any dialogue and just focuses on their eyes too and their face mostly. It's something that could have come across very awkward if it wasn't acted out well. So yeah, I'll give props to them both for making that scene what it is.
And yeah, so everyone in the cast and crew is amazing, and they've all had their individual moments of, like, had great acting. But this one scene that always moves me to tears is the marriage, and the first one, because it was so interesting to see Arnav's shift from, like, a softer man, but to this really hard shell. And with the coldness in which he delivers Khushi this threat, and perhaps one of the most interesting part of, like, the reason why I say this whole sequence, Barun and Sanaya just like aced it, like throw them all the awards, is Khushi's breakdown of what is happening to This Is a Nightmare, and Arnav trying so hard to be ruthless, but there would be these little moments like when Khushi would break into a cry and she's not looking at him, and he would just, for a second, his composure would break because he cannot see her cry. And their whole temple wedding, oh my god, they're literally communicating with their eyes. Again, there's no conversation like the previous scene, there's no conversation over here. So this moment where they're at the temple, Arnav just looks at her, Khushi looks at him, he opens the door and he looks at her again, and Khushi just has this look of, please don't do this, but she does not say it. It is so beautifully done, so beautifully acted. I completely get why Sanaya was exhausted to even give an interview. Like, poor girl, probably just like they gave their 200% and you could see it. It is beautiful. Probably one, also cinematography wise, those scenes were directed and shot so beautifully. It was very nice. Like, it was very painful because it was tragedy that was very beautifully shot and beautifully acted. So that scene breaks me up. I'm not talking about what happens post that scene, but that sequence, in my eyes, the highlight of the show. And they could have just, it was fantastic.
I do see that you picked a track and not a scene. Don't think I'm not.
It is a scene. It is. I am specifically.
His mind, like her crying and him looking at her and giving a different, that tiny expression is
Two scenes, okay? If it's related to the marriage, it's two scenes, okay? Listen, Barun and Sanaya acted too well in that scene. I was just crying when I was looking at that. It
I'm
was.
not saying. I mean, I have a lot of favorites. I didn't pick all of.
It is the same scene. Don't argue with me. It is the same thing, okay? It is the same thing. I approve this.
That's
I
like you writing a test and then marking it yourself.
Yes, haven't you seen Shyam Manohar Jha? He operates that.
So you are Shyam Manohar Jha, is what you're saying?
He's S, I am also S. Kahi na kahi to connection hoga.
And you both have the bracelet. Yep.
Yes, we do. Now, best comedy scene in the show.
Ooh,
Also, another thing IPK did really well was comedy.
they had great comic timing. Yeah. This one's tough.
You can choose a track.
No.
I'm very kind, unlike
No, I don't break the rules like someone else on this podcast. Yeah, I just really enjoy it because we got so little of it. I really enjoy the three brothers interacting.
To phone. Lurky, मुझसे? Hello? Hey, what's up?
बुआ जी
मेरी हिंदी भी मच्छी है, बहुत बहुत मच्छी है.
Gets like that whole sequence to me. Just it highlights how much of a loss it is that we did not get more sequences between all of them.
Oh my god, yes, that is really good because my favorite comic track, I mean, comedy of everything is the New Year. It is the New Year.
I was gonna pick that, but NK wasn't there and I couldn't betray him.
MK was there. Like, he opens the door to Boa.
That's the whole thing. Again, pick a scene.
It is the whole New Year. It is the whole New
It's a track. It's not a scene. Oh, God, this girl. Okay.
Okay, I would say out of all of it, if there is one thing that totally cracked me up and I was genuinely dying, is Akash trying to enter the Gupta house.
बुआ जी कोई है क्या आसपास?
पता नहीं बेटा।
कितनी बार कहा है कि ये पर्दा बंद रखा करो, मच्छर अंदर आ जाइए, तो सुनता ही नहीं है नंद किशोर। क्या करे इन लोगों का?
The whole Akash, Payal and Buaji, that trio is so chaotic. And Rids and I were just laughing a few days ago that Akash, the hone wala damad of the family, the most legit member to come and visit the Guptas at 12 o'clock, almost gets beaten up to death with that whole plot.
Almost. He does get beaten up. Buaji like steps on his hand or something.
Yeah,
too.
gets beaten up, gets stepped on because he just wants to meet his fiance. And Buaji puts Arnav to bed with Khushi. Like, you can see who is Devi Maiya's favorite. Poor Akash.
I think it's just true of like eventual like interactions with Arnav versus Akash as well. I feel like Akash would have to think 15 times before he goes and visits Payal post marriage in their house, whereas Arnav will just like barge in at any given moment of time, regardless of their marital status.